The arena is not loud. It is vibrating with a frequency that feels like a headache. It is the first Friday of 2026, and the air inside the building is thick with a humidity that shouldn't exist in midwinter. For 2 months, the women's division has moved with a mechanical, almost joyless efficiency. The championship, now firmly around the waist of a dominant bruising force, has become a symbol of utility rather than prestige. There is a vacancy in the atmosphere, a lack of color that the neon lights fail to fill. Fans are sitting on their hands, not out of boredom, but out of a collective, unspoken realization that something essential has been excised from the program. The ring sits empty under a single, flickering spotlight that the tech crew hasn't bothered to fix. It feels less like a stage and more like an altar for a sacrifice that has already occurred. The commentary team has fallen into a rhythmic, professional lull, their voices carrying the weight of people who have run out of ways to describe the same cycle of destruction. They speak about the upcoming schedule, the logistics of the next tour, and the mechanical dominance of the current title holder. But beneath the corporate polish, there is a visible exhaustion. Michael Cole adjusts his headset, his eyes darting toward the curtain with a look of genuine apprehension. He isn't waiting for a hero. He is waiting for the other shoe to drop. The crowd's murmur is a low, rolling tide of uncertainty. They have spent weeks speculating, scouring social media for a grainy photo or a leaked flight itinerary, but the silence from the other side has been absolute. The Tiffy time chants died out in late November, replaced by a cynical, defensive quiet. Every time the lights dim for a commercial break, a localized gasp ripples through the front rows, only to be extinguished by the familiar logo of a secondary sponsor. The disappointment is becoming a character of its own. It is a psychological weariness that comes from expecting a spark and receiving only smoke. Tonight feels different, though. There is a technical glitch on the Titantrona, momentary shiver of pink static that isn't part of the usual broadcast. It's so fast that half the audience misses it, but the half that saw it has stopped breathing. The referee in the ring looks toward the gorilla position, his hand hovering over his earpiece, his face pale under the house lights. He looks like he's seeing a ghost through the curtain. The silence that follows is not the silence of a break. It is the silence of a vacuum. The ambient noise of the arena, the hum of the air conditioning, the distant clatter of concessions simply vanishes. It is as if the entire building has been submerged in deep water. In the front row, a young girl holding a faded Center of the Universe, Sin slowly lowers it, her eyes fixed on the entrance ramp. There's no music. There are no pyrotechnics. There's only the sound of a heavy metallic heartbeat thudding through the subwoofers. It is slow, deliberate, and entirely devoid of the bubbly energy that once defined this space. The crowd is no longer a collective. They're individuals trapped in a moment of shared, paralyzing confusion. They are waiting for a return, but the energy in the room suggests an arrival. The explosion of noise usually associated with a top-tier return is nowhere to be found. Instead, when the lights finally cut to black, the sound that fills the arena is a low, guttural moan from the thousands in attendances, sound of collective realization. When the spotlight finally hits the top of the ramp, it isn't the blinding, glamorous gold of the past. It is a harsh, clinical white. Standing there is Tiffany Stratton, but the image is a fractured reflection of the woman who left. The pink is gone. In its place is a muted, deep charcoal gear that looks more like a shroud than a costume. She isn't posing. She isn't checking her watch. She's simply standing there, her shoulders hunched slightly, looking at the ring as if she's trying to remember why she ever wanted to be inside it. The camera zooms in, and the commentary goes silent. Michael Cole doesn't scream a catchphrase. Corey Graves doesn't make a joke about her pedigree. They're silent because the woman on the screen looks genuinely unrecognizable in her spirit. Her hair, once a perfect sculpted platinum, is pulled back into a messy utilitarian knot. There are no crystals, no glitter, and no bravado. As she begins to walk down the ramp, her gait is heavy, lacking the gymnastic grace that made her a prodigy. Every step looks like an effort of will. Fans near the barricade reach out, but they don't cheer. They pull back. There is an aura of coldness radiating from her that makes the stunned silence feel more like a terrified observation. She looks like someone who has spent 2 months in a room with no windows. As she reaches the ringside area, she stops and looks at a fan sign that reads, "We missed you." She doesn't smile. She doesn't even acknowledge the sentiment. She looks through the sign, through the fan, and into a middle distance that no one else can see. The divided energy of the crowd begins to manifest. A small pocket of the arena tries to start a welcome back chant, but it's quickly swallowed by a wave of hushed whispers and shushing from those who feel the weight of the moment. This isn't a celebration of a star's return. It's the witnessing of a person's haunting. She isn't here to reclaim her spot. She is here because she has nowhere else to go. The discomfort is so thick you could carve it with a knife. She slides into the ring, but even that movement is stripped of its usual flair. There is no spring over the top rope, no theatrical landing. She crawls through the middle rope like a common worker, her boots scuffing the canvas. When she stands in the center of the ring, the house lights come up just enough to reveal the dark circles under her eyes. She looks older, not in years, but in experience. The current champion, who had been standing in the corner, takes a step back. It isn't a step of fear, but of genuine confusion. This wasn't the opponent she prepared for. This wasn't the Barbie of the division. This was a ghost in a charcoal suit. Tiffany reaches for a microphone, her hand trembling so slightly that only the high-definition cameras catch it. The microphone remains at her side for what feels like an eternity. The crowd is so quiet you can hear the faint buzz of the speakers. Usually this is the part where the returning hero earns a roar by mentioning the city they are in or their desire for the gold. Tiffany does neither. She looks down at the logo on the mat, her breathing heavy and ragged. When she finally raises the mic to her lips, she doesn't speak to the champion. She doesn't speak to the fans. She whispers something into the foam that the house speakers barely pick up. It sounds like an apology or perhaps a prayer. The Tiffy time we knew didn't just end in November. It died, and whatever this is, has crawled out of the wreckage to claim the remains. The moment the segment ends and the cameras cut to a frantic coming up next graphic, the real shockwaves begin to ripple through the backstage area. This wasn't a scripted beat that everyone was briefed on. In the gorilla position, the atmosphere is one of panicked whispers and frantic radio chatter. Producers are looking at each other with wide eyes, questioning if that was the intended presentation. The wall between the performance and the reality has thinned to the point of transparency. As Tiffany walks through the curtain, the usual line of congratulatory peers is absent. People move out of her way. They aren't giving her space out of respect. They are moving because the air around her feels toxic. In the locker room, the tension is a physical weight. Veteran stars who have seen 100 returns in their careers are sitting in silence, staring at the monitor. There is no good to see you or welcome home. Instead, there is a sense of profound intrusion. One prominent member of the roster is heard muttering about the darkness Tiffany brought back with her, a sentiment that echoes the feeling of the entire building. The consensus isn't that a top star has returned to boost the ratings. It's that a volatile element has been introduced into a stable environment. The media chaos starts almost instantly. Social media is a firestorm of screenshots of her face, with fans debating if this is a work or a legitimate mental breakdown. The grounded, serious nature of her appearance has made the sports entertainment aspect of the show feel suddenly uncomfortably real. By the time the show reaches its second hour, the backstage interviews are being scrapped or rewritten on the fly. No one wants to talk about their own matches. They want to know what happened to the girl who used to talk about the prettiest moon so ever. There is a report leaking from the medical office that Tiffany refused to speak to the staff, simply sitting on an exam table in the dark until she was asked to leave. The legacy pressure is mounting. This is a woman who was supposed to be the next big thing, the hand-picked successor to the greats. But seeing her like this, the legacy feels like a burden that has snapped her spine. The corporate offices are likely in a tailspin, wondering how to market a spoiled girl who no longer cares about the spoils. The personal consequences are starting to bleed into the public eye as well. Rumors of a total disconnect from her family and her former life begin to circulate among the crew. She didn't arrive in a limo. She didn't have her usual entourage. She arrived alone in a rental car, and she left the same way. The locker room conflict isn't about title shots or TV time. It's about the safety of the workspace. When someone looks that hollow, how can you trust them to catch you on a dive? How can you trust them to follow the script when they look like they've burned the book? The women's division, once a place of competitive fire, has become a place of wary observation. As the night draws to a close, the fallout is inescapable. The Tiffany Stratton brand, once a goldmine of merchandise and viral clips, has been reset to zero. But it's a negative zero. It's a void. The media circus is beginning to gather outside the arena, looking for a quote, a look, or any explanation for why the 2026 return felt more like a funeral than a comeback. The stunned fans are leaving the building in a daze, their conversations hushed. They came to see a show, and they left feeling like they had participated in something they weren't supposed to see. The narrative has shifted from, who will she face next to, will she survive the month? Weeks pass, and the return of Tiffany Stratton remains the only topic of conversation in the industry. But the conversation has turned clinical, almost morbid. The initial shock has transitioned into a deep, analytical dread. The legacy of the center of the universe has become a haunting. In press conferences, the current champion is asked less about her defense and more about the vibe Tiffany brings to the arena. The answers are always the same. A stuttered response about professionalism followed by a quick subject change. No one wants to look directly at the sun, and no one wants to look directly at whatever Tiffany has become. The pressure on her to perform is immense, but she has stopped performing entirely. Behind the scenes, the struggle to integrate this new version of her into the product is failing. The creative team is at odds. Some want to lean into the broken persona, while others are terrified it hits too close to home for the audience. This isn't a character arc. It feels like a genuine casualty of the industry. The family consequences are becoming public knowledge, with reports of her daddy's girl persona being more than just a gimmick, and the fallout of her absence being a total severance of those ties. The woman who had everything now appears to have nothing, and the fans are starting to realize that the spoiled girl was perhaps a shield for someone who didn't know how to exist without the spotlight. The locker room tension has boiled over into a full-scale divide. Younger talent, who grew up watching her rapid ascent, are disillusioned. They see the toll the top has taken, and they are starting to question if the price of the Stratton era was too high. The media chaos has turned into a series of think pieces about the psychological demands of the road. Every time she is spotted in a hallway or a gym, the photos show a woman who is physically there but mentally miles away. There is no Tiffy Time merchandise in the stands anymore. The fans who used to wear her shirts now look at them in their closets with a sense of unease, as if the fabric itself is stained with the memory of that cold Friday night. The aftermath has also affected the stock price and the corporate partnerships. This isn't the marketable star they signed up for. They wanted the pink, the glitter, and the TikTok dances. They didn't want the charcoal gray reality of a woman who has looked into the abyss and found it boring. The legacy pressure is now a legacy of caution. She has become a cautionary tale in real time. Every match she participates in feels like a choreographed accident waiting to happen. She is still technically flawless in the ring, but her movements are joyless. The prettiest moonsault ever is now just a rotation, a mechanical necessity to end a segment. There is no triumph in her victories, only a sense of relief that the minutes are over. As we look at the footage of her sitting alone in the locker room after the cameras go dark, we see the true cost. This wasn't a viral moment designed to sell tickets for the next premium live event. It is a crack in the foundation of the fantasy. The consequences aren't just for her, they are for the entire industry. We are forced to ask ourselves what we are actually cheering for. Are we cheering for the person, or are we cheering for the meat in the grinder? Tiffany Stratton's 2026 return didn't just stun the fans, it indicted them. It made the WWE Universe look in the mirror and realize that their demands for more, bigger, faster, eventually break the things they claim to love. The final image of that first month back isn't of Tiffany holding a title or standing over a fallen opponent. It is a grainy, handheld shot from a fan in the parking lot, long after the lights had been cut and the trailers had been packed. Tiffany is leaning against her car, staring at the empty arena. There are no cameras there. There is no script. She is just a woman in the dark, breathing in the cold air. The question that lingers in the mind of every viewer isn't whether she will win the title again, but whether she wants to. We have spent years watching her clock in, but we never asked what time she was actually keeping. The Tiffy Time watch hasn't just stopped. No, it's been smashed. The emotional trap of her return was the realization that we were watching a person who had finally seen through the curtain and realized there was nothing on the other side. The shock wasn't the change in gear or the lack of music. It was the absence of the lie. We are so used to the superhuman nature of these performers that when one of them shows us the human beneath the super, we don't know how to react. We call it stunning because tragic is too hard to market. Call it a return because surrender doesn't fit on a poster. As the screen fades to black on this chapter of her career, the reflection in the monitor is our own. We are the ones who waited for the pink static. We are the ones who demanded the return. We are the ones who feel cheated because she didn't come back with a smile and a catchphrase. The lingering question isn't about her future, but about ours. If the center of the universe is empty, where does that leave the rest of us? Was the glitter ever real, or was it just a way to make the bruises look like jewelry? This wasn't just a return, it was an ending. The girl who wanted to be the future finally arrived, and she found out that the future is just a different kind of past. The silence that followed her entrance on that first night has never truly gone away. It has become the baseline for the division. Every time a new star debuts with a flashy video and a catchy theme, the audience looks at the curtain with a bit more skepticism. They are looking for the gray beneath the pink. They are looking for the woman who realized that the pretty and prettiest Moonso was the